What we really want you to hear in these hours that we are together today is that there is an easier approach than any of you have been applying. It's much easier to awaken in the morning in the vortex because you went to sleep in the vortex. And then from your in the vortex state of being to maintain your alignment rather than try to reclaim it after the fact. What we are getting at is that this vortex is calling you. And when you are in despair, you can't hear the call. If you're hanging around in an attitude of hope, the vortex will take you in and show you something to make you believe. But it's not the easiest thing in the world to move from despair into revenge, into anger, into overwhelmment and frustration, into hope, into joy, because all of those habits of vibration also are attracting to you other things that you're having to deal with on a pretty regular basis. You get what we're talking about? In other words, you can decide every day that you're going to think positive thoughts, but you're going to attract pretty close to where you have been because you don't shift your vibration all at once. But what we want to show you is that as you find yourself from time to time in a moment of very slight or no resistance, that's the time that you want to really put the steam on for compounding and remembering and milking the vibrational frequency of the vortex. In other words, do your work when it's easier to do it rather than when it's harder. So this message really is about starting with the easy things first and letting the universe show you how a feeling of ease brings manifestation, and then work yourself more and more into those things that you really want. Once you show yourself that this universe is responsive to your vibration, and once you show yourself that you have deliberate creative control of your vibration, which means you can control your vibration. But we're going to give you a very heavy-duty thought here to think about, and then we'll smooth the corners off of it after you've responded to it. We want you to understand that while you do have the ability to control your vibration, but you do not really have the ability to control your thought. Now, technically that's not accurate because thought and vibration are one and the same. But if you will decide that you're going to control your vibration, which means you're going to work at it from an emotional standpoint rather than a thinking standpoint, you'll make much more progress. Are you sort of following us? It's like it's easier to find the feeling of love than it is to love that person, that particular scoundrel. That particular scoundrel is, well, everyone agrees, rotten, really bad and rotten. But it's easier to find the emotion of love than it is to love that person. It's the general alignment rather than the specific alignment. You're following? So if you reach for the feeling of alignment, have you ever had the experience where, for no good reason, you just felt happy for a moment? When you find yourself in a moment in time where you've just caught the glimpse of a child's face or a dog's face, or you've just heard something come through your internet or through your radio, or you remembered something blissful. In other words, there are those moments where you just catch a glimpse of them, and what they are, it's when your resistance is down. Now, hear us. It's when your guard is down. When your guard is down, the vortex will suck you in. Now, most of you come to your senses immediately and run right back out because you didn't mean to let your guard down. You have yourself sort of poised to prevent problems and to wrestle things to the ground and to take care of things and to be responsible. But every now and again, you'll just be in a moment where you will be drifting, where you're not focused upon something that is holding you out of the vortex, and the vortex will take you in. And that's what we want you. That is your assignment. We usually don't offer assignments, but this is your assignment. Over the next few days, watch for those moments when the vortex is having its way with you for a moment, and then do everything in your power to rest there, to stay there, to delay it, to milk it longer. In other words, in the same way that Jerry and Esther, we're not kidding you, they listened to that song dozens of times. It felt too good to let it go. When you want something that you don't have and you try to get it from your vibrational stance of believing that you don't have it, it's just annoying. In other words, it's like that conversation that you were having with someone else where you defend your position. The more they tell you what they believe, the more you tell them what you believe. So you set yourself up for battle with these affirmation cards as the affirming hits you when you are not on the wavelength of it. You are following? We want you to do 100% of your affirming from inside the vortex. We want you to do 100% of your planning from inside the vortex, your guiding from inside the vortex. We want you to order your airline tickets from inside the vortex. In other words, get in the vortex and then, get in the vortex and then. Tune in first, align with who you are and then. And anything that you're doing before you're in the vortex is not part of the letting it happen process. In other words, there's plenty of time not in the vortex. Outside the vortex is really where step one happens. That's where you ask for what you want. It isn't that you work your way into the vortex. It isn't that you try your way into the vortex. It isn't that you struggle your way in or prove your way in or defend your way in or justify your way in or rationalize your way in. You bask your way in. You relax your way in. You allow your way in. Or you just notice when you're in, and then that's when you begin offering your affirmations. That's when you begin focusing. That's when you put the steam on. That's when you make your effort. That's when you milk the vibration of the vortex. And what you'll begin to discover, you're going to discover a leverage the likes of which you have never discovered before. You're going to discover why effort outside the vortex is confounding and futile, and effort inside the vortex is powerful and influential and satisfying and oh so productive in every way that you mean productive. We're eager to talk with you about anything that is important to you. There is nothing off limits here. What do you want to talk about?
Thank you for your compassion, your love, and clarity and all that. It's amazing. But in the moment, there are some times when you may be driving down the street and you're not feeling good, and it's hard to reach for a better feeling thought sometimes. And now I realize that.
But in the acknowledgement that I'm getting what I'm vibrationally aligned with, even that is helpful. In other words, if you will own it, if you don't feel good and you attract ornery people and you say, well, I'm a match to you, so welcome to my party. It's better than saying, I don't know how you got here. What are you doing here?
Oh, okay.
In other words,
don't resist that either.
Own it. Own it. Okay. Own it and say, I'm having a step one moment with you. You remind me of my mother, in fact. Which means I'm probably putting all kinds of wonderful things in my vortex, which I don't have the ability to benefit from right now while you're annoying me. But I know that later on there will be benefit from this interaction.
Right.
In other words, own it. At least accept responsibility. Perfect. Because we want you to focus upon these vibrational rendezvous points where people are buzzing around you and they've all got their vibrational variety show going on. And you have a particular vibration that's active, which makes you line up with the part of them and 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 the part of them that's active in you. Have you noticed? Mm-hmm. You noticed that some days everybody's just rude? Odd, isn't it? Have you noticed some days that people are just really helpful? In other words, you have so much more influence over what comes around you. And as you start noticing it, then you begin to realize that as you tend to your vibration, instead of worrying about what vibrations that others have, if you tend to your vibration and deliberately dominate your vibration by putting into the foreground something that feels really good, and the way we would do that, we would go to sleep with an intention to bask in something that is easy to bask on. Esther focuses upon her pillow. She got this new pillow, which she really, really loves. She carries it with her everywhere she goes. And the first night, Jerry says, I love you, honey. And Esther said, I love my pillow. In other words, it was the most important thing for several nights. She just focused upon that perfectly contoured, wonderfully smelling perfect in every way for her pillow. In other words, the pillow has never been bad to her. The pillow has never sent her a scathing email. That pillow has never let her down. In other words, it's just this neutral zone that was easy for her to focus upon its positive characteristics. So bask your way to sleep. Focus upon the deliciousness of the fabric against your skin. Just bask yourself to sleep. And in the morning when you wake up, lie there with an attitude of appreciation for a little while. And just those two deliberate functions will get you up on the right foot of vibration, where it is then logical that of all of the variety show that was there before, your likelihood of rendezvousing with something better feeling than usual is now certain. So now you rendezvous with something better and you feel a little better. You see, the reason we are enjoying this conversation is because you have all of these potentially active. In other words, if you've been complaining about someone pretty recently, that's a potentially active vibration. If you've been worried about the oil spill, that's a potentially active vibration. If you've been basking about something that you are enjoying, that's a potentially active vibration. So now you're walking out, you're not a pure vibration, you're not really only in sync with your source energy, you've got a whole lot of potentially active vibrations going on within you, which means there are a lot of potentially active rendezvous points around every corner where you go, because all this stuff's active within you, or could potentially be. You see, you haven't practiced yourself way over there. You've practiced yourself sort of all over the place. So almost anything could happen in the beginning of this. And so maybe it's something that doesn't please you. Now the question is, what do you do next? So you rendezvoused with something that doesn't please you. Do you say, oh, of all this variety show that was potentially possible, you came forward and I don't like you so much, so I'm just going to not talk about you. I'm not going to push against you. I'm not going to have a conversation when I get to work about you. I'm going to let you fade further into the background, but in order to do that, I've got to bring something else into the foreground, because nothing goes into the background until something else comes into the foreground. So now, if you try to find something positive about that, you probably won't. It'll probably just amplify its negative to you. But you might focus on how good that pillow was the night before. In other words, as you choose something else, then something else comes into the foreground. Now, you are more deliberate. You have more definiteness of purpose than you did just before. You've got a better handle on your vibration than you did just before. You are more determined than you were just before. And now a whole other set of potentially active things marches forward, while the formerly set of potentially active things marches backwards. Are you getting the sense of this? Your point of attraction has shifted, and now a whole different spectrum of a whole different set of personality traits, maybe even a whole different set of people, is now available for your rendezvous point. So now you're moving through your experience, and there you are. You're percolating that vibration. You're sending it out to the universe. The law of attraction is lining up things that match what's active within you. So now something else comes forward, and you get to decide, is this good feeling enough for me? Should I stop and pause and make it even more active? Or is that yet another thing that I would just as soon marches into the background of my vibration? And what would I like to bring more further forward? You're following? Until day by day, it's like peeling the layers of an onion. You begin to deliberately, on subject after subject, state your preferences by, better said, practice your preferences by deliberately focusing, by having conversations with yourself about them, until before you know it, you're walking through this life experience, and only the brightest, clearest, nicest, potentially creative rendezvous points are even shown to you. People who watch you say, were you born with a golden spoon in your mouth? Were you blessed with, how does this happen? Do we really have equal access to the vortex? You seem like you're getting more than your fair share of good stuff from the vortex. Do we really have equal access to the vortex? Because your life sure goes better than mine. And you could say, and they might hear it and they might not, I practiced myself here. I, little by little, brought to the foreground more good-feeling things, and just let the not good-feeling things decompose from inactivity in my vibration.
Perfect.
It is.
Thank you.